How you doing? It's Cam McCarroll with Right at Home Realty and Harbor Properties with a video on Hamilton investing, and specifically I want to talk about a popular strategy that a lot of my clients are taking and I have taken in the past, and that is buying multifamily properties, smaller multifamily residential properties in Hamilton. And what I'm talking about is duplex, triplexes, fourplexes, and that sort of thing. Anything above single family but below a fiveplex. So when you get into the fiveplex, you're dealing with a commercial property and typically a different lending criteria and typically a different zoning criteria as well. But what I'm going to specifically talk about is just the duplex, triplex world. Now, let's say, like what I'm doing often for clients is I'm scouring the neighborhood. I'm watching listings come through as they come in. We've got access to listings immediately when they come in, whereas the public gets them about 36 hours after we get them. As a realtor, we have access to the MLS system, so we get them a little sooner than the public. And what we're doing, myself and my team, what we're doing is we're looking at the listings as they come through, and we're looking at specifically anything that cash flows and is in the right area. Okay, so we've got certain geographical areas that if you download my report that I wrote, you can get the specific areas that we're buying in and why we're buying in them. So I'm looking at the neighborhoods, and as these things come on the market, I'm picking out properties that are in certain price ranges and have multi-units in them. And they usually say on the listing, so I'm usually seeing duplex, triplex, or often I'm looking at the kitchens and seeing how many kitchens there are in there. So that's the first step. And once I've determined that I got a property that is probably going to work cash flow wise if it's fully rented and as a multi-unit, 2 kitchens, 3 kitchens, what have you, that's only the first filter of the search. The next part is, does it conform to the zoning? And number 2, does it meet fire code? Number 1 is a bigger issue and something that would probably make me less inclined to move on that property, whereas number 2, the fire code issues, those are things that can generally be resolved through fixing up the property and contracting and doing stuff like that, so actually working on the property. But the zoning is something that is much more difficult to shift and change. So it's basically what you get, what you have is what you get. Like what is currently there is what you've got to deal with. Now there are 3 types of property. I categorize 3 types of property when it comes to number 1, the zoning. The first type of property is legal. So let's take a triplex. It's legally established as a triplex, and that's great. The other part in number 1 is legal non-conforming. So what that means is basically it's legal, it's been recognized by the city as legal, but there is an aspect of the property which doesn't conform to the bylaw or the zoning bylaw on that particular lot. But it's established legally, okay? So there may also be little aspects of the property that are not conforming and that may not even be allowed, or that need to be remedied or need to be a variance issued for, but the use of duplex or triplex or whatever it might be is legal. So those are that's the first category, and that's the category that we can feel really good about and safe about when we're buying properties. If it's a legal established or legal non-conforming, I feel really good about that, and that's something that, okay, great, I would then move that into the next level of, okay, well, it's time to go look at this property and really get a good sense of it. The second category of property is you get these situations where you have, say, a legal triplex, a triplex in a legal 2 zone. So it's a legal 2 family, but it's got 3 units. Like it might have a basement accessory unit with a main floor unit and an upper unit. Those properties are what I would categorize as the second level of risk. So you've got your legal non-conforming in the first, which is very no risk, very low risk, almost no risk. The second level of risk is where you've got a triplex in a 2-family zone, or a fourplex in a 3-family zone, or a 2-family zone. Now, the concern with that type of property is that it doesn't conform to the zoning. It's got aspects of it as a multi-use that do conform, but the 3rd unit or the 4th unit or what have you isn't legal. Well, that situation can pose a risk in that a neighbor can complain to the city, and then you could have that third unit or fourth unit, the city can come and knock on your door and inspect it, and then issue you a notice saying that you've got to, you're in violation and contravention of the zoning bylaw, and you've got to return it to a two-family use by such and such date. You'd have to evict the tenant. Now, those types of properties are not off the radar. We do purchase those types of properties, but when we do purchase them, we look at them from the perspective of their legal use. Would I be okay? Would I sleep at night? Would I be still happy with this investment if it was only being run as its legal use? If the answer is yes, then we move that into the next level of due diligence and getting to look at the property. If the answer is no, I wouldn't be happy with the cash flow, I wouldn't be happy with the way it works financially as its legal use, then we don't purchase it. Or I don't recommend we purchase it anyway. As an agent, as a real estate agent, I don't recommend that. So that's something to consider, is that these properties where you have extra use, an accessory unit, can you live if that accessory unit is gone and you return the main level, say, to this and the basement into one unit, if that makes sense. So what we're often doing is we would buy a triplex with a third unit in the basement, and then knowing that if we ever had to remove that third unit, that we would return the main floor unit and the basement back as one unit. So that would be an increased size, you get increased rent, so it wouldn't be a complete loss of that income from the basement unit. You would be eventually able to increase the main floor rent with the basement because you'd have a bigger unit. Hopefully that makes sense. The third type of property that exists in Hamilton is multi-unit properties in a single-family zone. So it's not legal, it's not recognized use, and we don't touch those. In other words, to be clear, we don't touch those. I don't recommend you buy those, because at any time you could have your property returned to single-family by by a neighbor complaint, or if the city happens to do a random check. So just to recap, there's your legal properties, your legal non-conforming. Those are great. We love those. There's your category number 2 is your duplexes zones with 3 units in them, or your triplex zones with 4 units in them, or sometimes you see duplexes with 4 units in them. We can live with those as long as we can live with having the property run as its legal use. So at some point down the road, maybe having to convert it if something happened where we needed to return it to its legal use. The third type of property is single family with multi-units in it. Don't recommend those. So that's the lay of the land in Hamilton. That's the type of property you're going to find out there in smaller multi-family properties. This is something we specialize in at Harbor Properties. So if you've got any questions about buying multifamily properties, smaller multifamily properties, or any other kind of property for that matter, don't hesitate to contact us. Our contact information is up there. If you hit the contact button, send me a message. I'll get in touch with you, or one of my team members will get in touch with you, and we'll get you going on that. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk soon. Take care.